It's a pleasure, and thank you for joining us on Beyond the Surface, where we take time to discuss critical, pertinent, life changing issues. My name is Fred Makubuya, and this time around, we'll take a deep analysis into the work related issues. The fact remains that all companies go through turbulent times, all companies go through crisis time. All companies go through stressful moments. What causes such issues? How can these issues be handled? But most importantly, how should the prevailing leadership handle critical crisis and pertinent issues happening at all times? I am privileged to speak to the person in charge of business development and policy here at the Uganda Manufacturers Association, Mr. Allan Ssenyondwa. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. A wonderful day to us, or evening to us who are listening and viewing us. My name is Allan Ssenyondwa. I'm the Director of Policy Research and Advocacy at Uganda Manufacturers Association, and I'm an economist.
Mr. Allan, let's begin on the issue of analyzing. Everybody would like to rise to the position of either managing director or a CEO, or anybody would want to rise to the level of a key decision maker in any institution. We want to find out what could be some of the expectations people in such leadership positions are expected of.
Allow me first of all to summarize and say, you can rank them how you wish, but you could say the top three are leadership, experience, and knowledge. Leadership will entail all the aspects of leadership: teamwork, listening ear, collegiality, ability to discern, and all those things. That is leadership. You must at least be able, before making a decision, to have listened, to have consulted, but also to have the knowledge and experience about the decision you're going to make. And I think that is where issues usually come in. When if you have a top CEO who is not knowledgeable or who is not experienced and who has no leadership skills, then things become a little bit tough. That's number one. The second one I've talked about is experience. Experience helps you in very many ways, because experience means either you have seen it, heard of it, talked about it, discussed certain issues which are nearly related to what you're going to make a decision about. It also helps you to make decisions easily because of your experience. And allow me to say the third one, knowledge. It's written in the Bible, my people die because of lack of knowledge. Knowledge is very key. Solomon's prayer was to be given wisdom, the ability to discern between right and wrong. These are very critical at that level. Now, every decision you make will create some sort of conflict. In strategic management, we will tell you, any student of strategic management will tell you, you're not going to avoid conflict, but you can minimize it. Now, allow me to break down a little bit that decisions can affect organizations differently. Are you a startup or an emerging company? Are you a growing company? Are you a mature company? Or are you a company on a decline? It affects all these companies differently. For example, If yours is an emerging company, call it a startup, it has just begun, the decision makers must be very focused on the vision of the company and be very agile. Agility and focus on the vision are very key. What is agile? Agile means you must be able to adopt very quickly. As a small company. And as a small startup, why must you be agile? Because you will be eaten. At that level, it is eat or be eaten. You have to survive. That's why in business management, we say the first job of any management decision or any management is survival. So whatever decisions you make as a startup, as an emerging company, you must survive as a company. So whatever decision you're making must lead you to surviving. Very different from when your company is now growing. A growing company is one whose market share is growing faster than its investments. At that level, your focus is making profits and growing. It's no longer survival. So whatever decisions and whatever conflicts you are going to create must still lead you to grow. It must not cause a breakdown because you're growing. And remember, from being an emerging to a growing company, you are still very fragile. Anything can happen. So your job is to ensure that the decisions you're making are leading you to high profits, high growth, and less internal conflict. The external conflict can be there, but recall, the unit inside the organization must stay strong. And therefore you need, for these first two levels of a company, you must have very strong leadership. The vision bearer or bearers must be very strong. Okay? Now you come to what they call the mature companies. Decisions at mature companies are very different. And therefore the conflicts will also be much fewer. Why? At mature companies, decisions are hierarchical. By the time the CEO makes the decisions, all the juniors will have made a decision leading to him or her making that decision. Very different mechanism. Why? Because in mature companies, systems have been developed, and so the structures have also been developed. And for those companies, it is very difficult to bring them down in one go. So there must be a series of wrong decisions that bring down such a company. A series. Otherwise, those wrong decisions will be captured very quickly, and the decision makers in such an instance will be brought to book or will be told what to do. So, now the last part, which I must speak about and then we can discuss, is the ones which are on the decline. Declining companies need another sort of leadership. Mature, very experienced, and very knowledgeable. And then, unfortunately, or fortunately for the person who is going to be there, very agile, very flexible. Why? Because every decision you're making can either accelerate your downfall or can take you up. So that leader who is leading a declining company must mix elements of being mature with elements of being a startup, because anything can happen. So you must have those two. So as you can see, the risks of each of these companies are different, and therefore the decisions you make lead to completely different outcomes.
Allow me bring me to speed on what could be those major challenges that people at the chief executive level or management level or MD level mainly face in any institution.
If you're a startup, your major challenge is survival. If you're a growing company, you will always hear one thing in your head: growth. If you're a mature company, you'll always hear one thing disturbing you: market share and staying B. If you are declining, unfortunately, you have two challenges. You're losing market share and you're losing profits. So you're making losses. So those are the challenges for each of these three. All the others stay within that. I'll give an example. If you are an emerging or startup, your major challenge is a daily cash inflow. Every day of your lives as that company must make money, more money than it expends. Otherwise, you're doomed. Why? The sales are few, the expenses are high. If you add in the ability that you have borrowed, it even worsens the situation. So you, as the team lead of an emerging company, focus there. 2, while you must focus there, you must focus on team cohesion. Don't let any conflict, any internal conflict, lead to unresolved disputes, because they only grow. So, what do we do? At emerging market level, emerging company level, you are like a department of a huge company. So, that means at that level, you must be able to have nearly daily meetings to keep every conflict down. Solve the conflicts as soon as possible to enable you to survive and make some money at that level. Different from a growing company, because now it's about growth. How do we grow? How do we grow faster? There, conflicts and the people causing the conflicts sometimes may have to be taken away. Because if you have a small window to grow very quickly, usually this window is a window of 2 to 5 years. After that, you may cease to grow that fast because others have copied you. Others begin to copy what you're doing. So you grow very fast, so that as others begin to copy, you have reached. So the conflict resolution, again, a little bit of more short meetings, not so many meetings as in the first place, but also identifying that the team, if there are any causes of trouble, that you are able to deal with them very quickly or let them go. At the mature level, the challenges there are maintaining to be at the top. They're usually collective decisions. They are usually departmentalized decisions. The CEO, at that moment, all he has to do and maintain is to have seasoned managers, directors to help him answer the questions at their department level so that the challenges don't spill over. But you must have a good eye to monitor your managers. So that is the challenge of mature companies. That is why you see that usually mature companies, their leadership style and leaders are supposed to be those who are having so-called open door policy, where the managers and directors can easily walk in and have quick meetings to resolve issues very quickly. The declining one, you have too many challenges coming your way. So you have to be agile. It is a tough world to be in when a company is really declining.
So at what stage do you let them go?
When you realize you must let people go, number one, letting people go, you must be very sure. Okay. I'll give an example since we all enjoy watching football. My top scorer is also the most difficult person. He's causing a lot of conflicts in the team, but he's the top scorer. What do I do? If I let him go, I will sink down in the numbers. If I don't let him go and he brings my team into disrepute, I will still go down. Question, what should I do? But the most important question is, how did that person get there? How did you get to that level? There are four. You as a decision maker, one thing that you must learn in life, you should never have one person in one place as the absolute person in that place. If I have a top scorer, I should have a nearly what you can call an assistant top scorer. That is the leadership style you have to come up with. A position can never be occupied completely by one person. That is a mistake you have made before. Otherwise, if you don't make it, if you haven't made it before, it becomes easy for you to say, okay, you're the top scorer, but look, we have a team to manage. You either support us in managing the team, or we'll let you go. So, in senior management or in mature companies, the institution is very simple. You have what they call a 360-degree audit by peers, but also an objective assessment of what you do. For example, such a person who is a top scorer, but also causing the most conflict, what do you usually do? You give the person more duties. Once the person carries on a more load, usually they become mature to know the conflict I'm bringing is causing more harm to me than to them. If that person fails, that means he's not a leader, he's an individualist. You have to let the person go.
In all the outbreak of conflicts or stress in the institution, where is the board involved?
Now, okay, so we have gone to governance. Now, usually a board is responsible for the senior management. The board appoints the CEO and top directors, sometimes managers, depending on the size of the company. If the company is medium-sized to large, the board will stop at hiring the CEO and the directors. And the CEO hires together with the directors, hire the managers and the junior staff. So the board comes in, especially if decisions and conflicts are at directorship level. There the board has to come in. If the senior management can't sit and agree, the only other alternative is the board. The board must come in and settle things. At the lower level, please, board, don't come in. The CEO must make those decisions, and they must be final. So that is where you have to know the limits of administration or management and the limits of governance. And you have to be very careful. Every decision governance does affects your relationship between the governance and admin. If governance enters into so deep into administrative issues, it makes itself liable. It loses the ability to adjudicate, to control, because the main role of governance. So governance, that's why you see it only proper governance comes just to the level of CEO and directors and stops there.
The CEO as a person and the CEO when it comes to position is one of those highly paid. And yet they seem not to be not doing much, only sitting in meetings and resolving a few issues. These are people who seem to be highly paid. Why?
Thank you. That is a very, by the way, very fundamental and good question. Why are CEOs and directors paid highly? Very simple. They make decisions that juniors may not be able to make and account for. And also too, their degree of risk is much higher than the junior's risk. Every decision that you as the CEO or director makes can bring a company, can make a company lose a lot of money. Okay? You need someone who is able to stand in the gap and say, you will not lose money. And actually be able to account for his ability not to lose the money. And not everyone is able to do that and get compensated for that. Because it's the compensation. Also, 3, don't look at the CEOs and directors as money guzzlers. They also have, allow me to say, the magic wand to create loads of money, which a junior officer will not be able to create. Example, a junior technical officer may be able to do all the books correctly. But the ability to convince another organization that a partnership created will bring synergies and create profits beyond each of these organizations working alone can only be managed at senior level. Ability for you to close deals cannot be done at junior level. It's at senior level. Therefore, your ability as an organization to compensate that level is key, because that level can bring in loads of money or do nothing about it. That is why also CEOs, especially in large companies, are not only paid highly, but they actually get something what we call a share of the profits they bring in. I'll give this last example. Every bank at the CEO level, the CEO is paid a salary and also a share of the profit, of the amount of money that person has brought in. And in some institutions, it means whether the institution has made a profit or a loss, that person will get a share of the amount of money they have brought in. Very key. Very key. And that is without me having been a director or nothing else. It is very key that the people at the top are there to help the organization grow and make profits.
So how then do we strike a balance between lower management and then those at the top management when it comes to such crisis time in an institution?
The balance. Number one, companies have developed means and ways in compensation for the different levels. Okay? There are about 3 models which are used on earth. There is the American model, which has a very steep compensation model. Very steep. A CEO could earn up to 100 times a junior. Even more than 100 times. But as you can see, the risk and award of the CEO tally nearly the same, because the CEO only survives as long as profit is being made. The day the profit stops to be made, thank you very much, they do. The European model is in between. The Japanese model is at the extreme. You have a flat hierarchy. It takes you years. For example, I think in Japan, the average years of a CEO is 60. It takes you really that long to get to the top. Now, the European model is in between the two extremes. So, how do you balance in between? It depends on the model you're using. It is very difficult for you to fire a Japanese CEO because most of the decisions are made together. So if you fire the CEO, that means you have to fire the whole top management. The American model, they really depend on your ability to, as an individual, to move things. Yes, there is a very thin senior management, but that senior management is all hired very objectively. The European model has a social aspects, just like the Japanese model, where they mix the Japanese, and so the senior management is not it's not easy to rise to the top, but you are raised to the top. So how do you balance the two? Depends on the model, number one, but also number two, the ability to for you to show the path to the top. If the path to the top is evident, then you can justify the different levels of compensation.
Your parting shot, Mr. Allan Ssenyondwa, as we conclude this very critical and significant matter when it comes to institutional management.
My parting shots in these aspects you have mentioned about management, about compensation, about risk, is that challenges of decision making and what they bring about is that companies at different levels of growth will always face different outcomes from the decisions made. It also means that the compensation of these top managers will always be different at the different levels of growth. It also means that the compensation of high or senior officials will depend on the on the level, on how steep the management levels are. The steeper, the more compensation. The less steep, the less compensation. But in all circumstances, companies are going to watch for three things: survival, growth or profitability, and growth. Those are the things that as business managers, we must always look out to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allan Ssenyondwa, for sparing time to speak to us on issues that most individuals fear to talk about. He is in charge of policy and advocacy at the directorate level when it comes to Uganda Manufacturers Association. My name is Fred Makubia, and thank you very much for watching Beyond the Surface. We'll link up next time.